So I'm here today to talk about my Don't Fold project. What I did was I used typographic elements to create a project that is getting across the Don't Fold BU thing. So I used a paper effect so then I could show exactly what I wanted to get across. So the font, because typography, it's supposed to be about how fonts get across your point. So I thought that a paper font would get across the point of not folding the most. So to do this, I tried to make it so that it was on I'll start with the background. I wanted to make sure that it was on a really nice kind of desk-like background because that's how I always think of paper, is on a desk. So what I did was I used this original image here and then I overlaid it with, just to get some color, these other two layers that I got from the internet, which is okay because it's supposed to be an original image, and which it is an original image, and then I had to change it so then it would be, because I really like the color that the internet image had, so I just overlaid it with that color, and that's how I created my background. So then I had to start working on the letters. So I have a paper texture over all the letters. See, I can make it go completely away. It's overlaid over the whole thing. To do this, I got a paper texture off the internet, put it in my document, and I and then I just overlaid it over the whole thing and then erased it where I didn't need it, which is over the background. So then I did all the letters, and the letters I started with a Futura font originally, and then I manually manipulated it so then it looks like folded paper, which I did with the lasso tool and I don't know how to show this really. I used this on the fonts, I did different selections and deleted different parts and added different parts. Like I created a bunch of squares and made it so then like on this F here you see that, okay, it's zooming in too far. Okay, so as you can see, like I just cut this out. It was completely around, but then I just cut it out. And here I made sure there was a definite difference between the layers of the shapes, and to make sure that the shapes had it looked as if the paper was folded, I put a gradient on the inside so then you could see that it was folded over it. So as you can see here, this gradient on the D, see, it gets darker and lighter, and I used the gradient tool, and so those were originally their own layers, but I added them in with the D, so now the whole D is like that. And I did that with every single letter. And then on this apostrophe here, you see I made it kind of cut and scraggly because then it was like actual paper was being cut. I didn't do that on the other letters because I wanted it to still be a very clean, very nice copy. And I feel like I wanted to make it really simple, so I made it Don't Fold, period, BU. Because I didn't want to have a whole lot of letters in it to get really confusing. So all I did was make it that way. It's really short, and I think it gets the point across, and I think everyone will really understand what it's about. And that's what I really liked about this project. Then, on the very kind of final touches, I copied the letters, and then I made them kind of a gray shadowy type, and then I just moved it slightly to the bottom left to make my light source seem like it's coming from the top right. That makes it seem as if the letters are really lying on the table, which I think really ended up really well. What I didn't really like about this project is that it's not quite as high of quality as I would have enjoyed, especially on the shadows, because what I did was I used the paint bucket tool to overlay the shadows, and it doesn't do a very exact job of that, and if I was going to do it again, I wouldn't do it quite like that. Like, it just doesn't give it the high quality that I would have liked. What it really did was it created this sort of, like, it makes it more grainy, and I don't really like that. I like to have a high quality product. And I also didn't quite like how, some of the letters turned out. Like, they're just not quite on directly. Like, you can see there's like very slight variance there that I didn't quite want. Like this, as you can see, they don't quite line up. So that doesn't quite work very well. But I think that the overall project, especially when you take a look back, is very nicely done overall. I did change the colors on the U letters. I think I really like my use of color on that. Because I wanted the U to pop out because it's about individualism. Like, you don't fold to society's constructs. Instead, you just be yourself, and then everything is okay. You know, if you just be yourself. So the you being colored represents the idea that you are a colorful and creative person, and that you want people to be you exactly how you are, and not like anyone else. And so so what I did was, after I created these layers of the letters, and so each letter and each letter shadow is individually a layer. The paper texture is a layer. I don't know what that layer is. And so it creates I did have to do a lot of organizing because I did have like hundreds of layers, because every gradient was a layer and every single like piece of the letter was a layer. So I did eventually decide that I had to kind of move them all into one. It was a big mess of layers, and if I could do it again, I'd be more organized in my layering, naming the layers, and like now they're named pretty well, the D copy. So, and that works pretty well. And I did have layer groups, like the background was under this layer group, and then the letters were under this layer group, and the texture was on its own. I like how I had a change in kind of light source. As you can see, the top right is where the light's coming from. So that's what my project's about. It took a long time to get the paper folding exactly how I wanted, because I wanted to make sure that it looked sort of like real paper was being folded, which is kind of difficult to do in a digital format. You know, I didn't have actual paper. I just had to like think about how it would be and how it was going to work, and then create it from there. I've done lots of Photoshop projects in the past, but this is kind of more of an extension into the typography section, which I hadn't really done a whole lot of. And I like the total copy, but I think that in the individual like pixel peaking levels, it's going to have some problems, because deep in there, it's not very high quality and it's not very high level there. Plus, I made some mistakes over here. Like, if you zoom in here, you can see the Y is slightly discolored there. That's due to a problem in the colorization that I did. But I do really like how the gradients turned out, because it really does give it a three-dimensional kind of level, how the paper's folded. And you can see how they're like just like each strip of paper and where that is, and how that sets in between, like for other strips of paper. And I think that the overall texturing is pretty good. I think it really gets across my point of don't fold, be you. Because the paper folds, I think that the symbolism is very apparent there. I really liked how it ended up being. And I really like the colors, and I really like how it works together to create this whole image. Thank you.